Good morning, ladies and gents. So, today we're going to work on something a little different than usual. Today we're going to start adding in conditions, specifically effects that can happen to people during the game, which will cause your characters to be better or worse than their standard state. You know, you've got your neutral state, and then you've got, say, nauseous is a little bit down, passed out might be a little further down, dead obviously being at the bottom, versus things like light-footed or shielded or stuff like that might be a better example of being in a good state. So, first off, we're going to name our folders correctly. This one is game icons, black and white. I tend to like to look through the black and white ones more than I do the others, just because it's easier to get a quick grasp on what's going on. And the thing here is that, not only do I need an icon, I need one that fits for some of my conditions, just to make it easy to understand that when somebody is nauseous, they're actually vomiting, and that's why their character isn't doing anything during combat. Stuff like that, which hopefully can quickly and easily show off exactly what's going wrong. So, I'm gonna start with, I don't think I had a nauseous one, and I think that's one of the ones in the list that I wanted to explore first. Let's see. If I go under my scripts and look at my character, yeah, I'll just pull up the code because why not? But I see asleep, poisoned, diseased, encumbered, stoned, as in turned to stone, not high. Confused and blind. Although stone, that might be hilarious to actually have stone to be high. But no. Alas, I don't think that's the way I'm going to go with that. Also, I had one more that I haven't added in yet, which is insane. Kind of like the confusion of Pokemon, insane is the I might do what you tell me to, I really might not. I might try to attack my own party members. I don't know. So I'll see if I can find anything that kind of points to some of those. That doesn't look too bad for something like poisoned, but I don't know if nauseous is on that list. That doesn't evoke that for me. And it's one of those things that you have to kind of figure out what you want it to look like and what you want the style to be, because something that might make sense to me might not for someone else. That screams coma to the artist, and I guess I can kind of agree with that. Why did I make them flags? Wouldn't that limit what I can do? How would that limit anything? They're flags. I can turn them all on or off. That's the point. That's the point. Let's see here. Cracked mask, cracked helm. Cracked helm would be great for when the durability on an item starts to get low. Same with the cracked shield. If one of your items starts to fall apart, having a cracked shield pop up so that you know, oh, hey, by the way, you know, your stuff's falling apart. Dan, thank you so much for hosting. Always a pleasure to have your viewers along for the ride. Thanks. And I couldn't help but notice that you are working on a dungeon crawler too. Very cool. I'll have to check it out. I haven't had a chance recently. But thanks. Now, where's one of those icons? I swear, this shouldn't be as hard as it is. Of course, part of this pack, and for those who are curious where I got these icons from, you can get them from gameicons.net, and I think there's something like 1,200 icons in the pack. It's a little overkill, but there's some really cool stuff in here. So if you are really in need of game icons for any reason whatsoever, and you like this style, they're the way to go. And they're really friggin' good looking, in my opinion. Just my opinion. Let's see here. Masks, no. Dread Skull, Dripping Honey, Dripping Sword. So something like this might be great for poisoned objects. You know, a dripping sword would be, you know, fantastic to let the player know, by the way, you own a sword that is that's poisoned. Like that makes sense, but for what we're hunting for, not quite. An embryo. Okay. I mean, yeah, to each their own. Energy breath. There we go. This actually might be good for the vomiting, though. I think this one... Let's see. We'll see if we can find any better, but energy breath. I'll have to keep that word in mind. Just in case. Because at least for vomiting, that could be a good one. Nauseous is something that does happen to you during a fight. If you get nauseous, there's a chance that you will do a couple of things. One, there's a chance you'll feel better. Two, there's a chance you'll vomit and feel better. The problem is taking the time to lose whatever food, you know, comes out of the character's stomach is probably also going to cause them to not act and to be a pretty vulnerable target in combat. So that's part of why I like it so much, is it's not the end of the world, but it still causes one of your characters to be a little less functional without being completely unfunctional. Because I don't know what you're talking about. Like 90% of the games industry uses Windows, and if you don't think that's the case, you clearly haven't been in the industry. What are games made for? Windows. What are they made on? Windows. Of the many, many game projects I've worked on, all of them have been Windows-based. Only a couple have been multi-platform via OpenGL. And that's just a couple guys who did something a little different. Usually it requires a custom engine too, which is a lot of time for a game studio. And I have better things to do than make custom engines. Lemony, I'm sorry your morning's not going so well. Here today we are having a great morning, considering we can ever find the icon I'm hunting for. I'm looking for a good... I should have done this maybe pre-stream instead of doing it on stream, but it's always pretty to look at all the shiny things that exist in this pack. Da-dum-dum-dum. Another vest, lift, da-da-da-da-da. Yeah, I really think that first one is going to be the best one I'm going to be able to find for sick or like not feeling well. We'll see though, I'm only up to M apparently. Ugh. Da-dum-dum. Morbid humor, See, if you weren't smiling, I'd be more tempted to say that might be a good one, but not really. The oppression, that's not too bad. Person down on their hands and knees looks like they're not exactly having a great time. That might do it. The one thing I didn't like about what Wizardry did is they had a bunch of faces for all of their status effects, and all of their status effects were just different colors of faces. So nausea was, I think, green, just a green sad face for them. And you look at it and you're kind of like, wait, so how is this different from, you know, the 20 other different faces that you're showing me at the same time? And it just didn't work out well. You'd have to actually look it up in the manual each time. And the manual was black and white. So all you saw were slight variations on the same sad-looking face. And you kind of go, okay, I know this one is one of these. The question is, which one? And also, like, how do I figure out which I'm hunting for? Shouting, singing, nah. Some of these are starting to look good, but not quite what I'm hunting for. Although I can see some of these, you know, for Charmed, using this one would be very obvious. If one of your characters gets charmed and you have to now deal with them at least trying to defend the other character. Maybe when they're charmed, they'll auto-use the guard action on the enemy of all people. So they won't attack you normally, but if you attack them, they'll swing back. That would definitely be bad, but still something manageable. That's the one thing I want to make sure that happens to all of these, is every status effect I want to be manageable in some way. Kind of the thing that is really frustrating to the player that you never want to do is have something that's unmanageable. For example, if you think of why Blizzard ever does updates or changes to Hearthstone, it's because there's a deck out there or a card combination that is so unmanageable that it's not fun for other players. If you look at something like the old Miracle Rogue deck or the newer Patron Warrior deck, there was very little you could do against it. You could do stuff, but in comparison to the ability to counter other decks from Hearthstone, those two specifically were really hard to handle. And the problem is they would usually kill somebody in a turn or two. And what that ended up with was players who couldn't respond. Oh, here we go, vomiting. Well, crap. They're just like, I should just look for what I need. Okay, so we have a vomiting icon. And because I can, let's see if there's a transparent version. There should be. Vomiting. Hey. Hey. Except that it looks like just blank. Chances are it's not blank. That if I crack it open in paint.net, I'll see it's, yeah, that's exactly what I'm hunting for though. So this is great. What size is this? That's the other question. 512 is friggin' huge. Okay. Well, we're gonna go one step at a time. So, we take that. Here's our textures. And I'm gonna pull texture down here. So that now we should have, if I switch it to a sprite so that it has transparency, let's not use mip maps. And I'm just gonna set its base size a lot smaller. Just using the, just using Unity's import details so that one of the biggest things you can do is keep the source material size in our original work, but now we can size it up or down using this, which is great. The other thing we need to do is have a space for these to kick in. So the question becomes, where do I put them? And I kind of want to put all your status effects above your character, so that if we're looking at the party UI for, say, the warrior here, what I want to do, gosh, so there's two ways I can do this. One is I can just have the effects exist and I can just turn them on and off so that you have this like disparate set of things that are on. And I think for now I'm going to start with that, and then I'll switch over to something a little more helpful if I ever decide that I don't like how it's looking. So we're going to create empty, and it's just going to be the status effects for this person. And we're going to put, whoops, this actually, that should not be a sprite renderer. We want to create a UI image. That is this person looking like they're getting sick. It's great. We're going to make it the actual size that we expect it to be. That's actually a little huge. The problem is we also need to make sure it's visible, and that's a little more difficult. I'm actually tempted to swap back to the white on black, if only because that might be a little more readable. If you look at this, this is a dark on dark situation. I can't really see that much at all. When I'm looking at the screen, I definitely don't notice it. Let's try a few things to make this visible if we can. Come here, you. Layers, no. Adjustments, no. Invert colors, yes. Alright, let's see if that helps. Okay, that at least makes it incredibly visible, which I like. I like the fact that he is now doing his thing over there. Let's see. I had some other effects. I don't know if I want to actually spend the time looking through all the icons again for other things, even though now I've got some of them sitting in my head. I kind of just don't want to mess with them for right now. I'm tempted to use just the X icon in a bunch of places and get that over with. You also may note I'm turning off MIP maps on a lot of my sprites, mostly because MIP maps tends to mess with WebGL builds, and so that's kind of a thing that I've gotten used to turning off by default. Also, when we're talking about MIP maps, it does take up more memory space, and if you're not using the MIP maps, there's really not much of a point to hanging on to it either. Cool, so we've got, at least nausea should be a pretty easy one to tack in and make sure that it works. Ooh, broken server work. Ugh. I know that pain. I am the sole server person at the company I work at, and it can be a little terrifying sometimes. When other people want to make modifications to the server and either don't understand Linux, or the other one is they want to make changes and they just submit changes without testing them. So when you update, at least we have a dev server, so at least when you update the dev server, it just, everything breaks and they wonder why, and it's like, well, did you run a local copy of the server? Did that work? Alright. Anyway, enough talk of shop. Because we got better things to do. So, let's see. If I look at my scripts again, in fact, I can just Alt-Tab over to my scripts. Okay. Poison, diseased. So, I can't help but notice that nausea actually isn't in the list. Sleep, poisoned, disease, encumbered, confused, blind, insane. And finally, what's the last one? Oh, right. Nauseated. Is that spelled right? Yeah, nauseated. Good. Okay. Servers aren't foolproof enough. Nothing's foolproof. Unity isn't foolproof. You're gonna work in code, you're gonna find out very quickly that nothing is foolproof. You're always gonna run into bugs in someone else's code. Just kind of how it works. It is a rare occasion when you are not running into bugs in someone else's code. So, let's see. We've got our texture. That's great. We've got it showing nauseated. I want the Unity, why'd you do that? What I want in this case is not just for the statics effects to exist, but what I also want to do is hop in and say, well, for the space that we're going to consume, maybe I should make that a teensy bit smaller. The problem is I'm worried that's too small. If we look at something like that, let's see. First off, if we don't play the game in a tiny window. Also, if we don't break the game by doing silly things with our setup. There we go. That's a decent size, actually. That I still feel like that can communicate the information fairly well. Some of this also boils down to being able to find the right amount of space for things, so that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, I have confused here. Confused and insane are kind of similar. At least in nature. So I'm just going to do this. Normally, you should never modify your character conditions, but in terms of numbers, especially if you've got some set already, but in our case, we hadn't set any yet, so it's not a huge issue. Right now, we've got, it looks like, 8 of these that can show up on the screen, so we need to make sure that there's enough room for all of these. God forbid we just, like, run out of space while we're trying to dump a bunch of these down. That would not be great. That's why I kind of like that small size that it sits in right now. I think that works out fairly well for us. Okay, so there's our nauseated effect. Great, simple, easy. If we wanted to add a little flair to it, we could make it kind of a green. Let's not. For now, let's leave it white. We'll leave all of them white until I feel the need to either start coloring all of them or to just color a few of them here and there. Okay, cool. So there should be an update UI call somewhere inside here. And that, at least for the player character, which I guess I should have that class open and not the standard one. Deal damage, spent energy, sleep tick. So on sleep, there's a chance you'll get rid of it. So we need to keep that in mind. Let's see here. So this update UI call might get a little bloated, but I think it's going to be able to do what we want here. And we're going to start with UI root transform find child. The child is going to be status effects slash whatever the status effect is. So we're going to find the status effect root, and because there are so many of these, what I'm actually going to do, we'll see if we can do it this way. We'll say I is less than... Ooh. I didn't think about that. These are flags. I might have to do this by hand. I really hope not, but I'll see if I can think of a better way to do it later. We could go through each flag, and that wouldn't be the end of the world. Actually... yeah, let's do it that way. Let's see here. I think it's enum.system.enum. Because remember, everything in C# is a class. Even enums are a class of a kind. Names. Sweet. Yeah. So we're going to get the names of all the enums. And are there any... whoops. Okay, that doesn't really matter. Are there any effects that aren't one-to-one? Sleep, poison... nope, not really. They all look one-to-one. So... I did call them... oh, I called them character conditions. Cool. So we're going to send it off. We're going to get all the character conditions. And once we've got the character conditions... for each string condition in I need to rename things, obviously. We're going to say find child, and the name we're going to use is actually just the condition, 1 for 1. So nauseated, that's its own thing. So the only thing I don't like about this is the fact that I can't exclude certain ones, and if it does a search, then it may or may not actually find it, which is going to be burnt time. We can always do this to safeguard ourselves against anything stupid. It just kind of burns a little extra time, like I said. We try and not consume the processor if we don't have to. And that's not optimization. If anyone tells you that common sense, you say something and it's common sense, and they're like, well, that's optimization. You shouldn't do that till the end. There's a kind of common sense optimization you should be doing all along. Doing something the wrong way is a kind of bad thing, and obviously if you want to optimize and modify existing code, I can kind of understand that. But if you're writing it smartly in the first place is its own kind of optimization that doesn't really need to be avoided. If you're writing a problem and you write an n-squared solution, and then cleaning up that n-squared solution is a optimization, that's one thing. If you can write it as a big O of n in the first place, then what's the optimization going on? Unless, and here's the caveat, you want to make sure that you're not obfuscating code early on, right? You don't want to look at it and say, okay, how can I get this right the first time and use these crazy data structures? No. If you can do it right the first time using the standard data structures, or just by using different data structures, go for it, right? If you have the tools, use them. And when things go wrong, you can always go back to the basics. Always go back to arrays, to lists, to whatever your most base element is, and try it with that. Because that tends to help. Okay, so for each effect, we have the name of the effect. The problem is having the name for the effect doesn't give us the value for it. Get name versus get values. We could parse it back in. Let's try that for now. And then we'll kind of push it around back to how we want it to work later. For now, I'm trying to do this dynamically and then clean it up instead of doing it static and ugly. Because static and ugly could work. It could, but I'd also appreciate it not being static. You know what? For the sake of not losing my sanity over trying to debug something that is probably going to be overly complicated, let's just do it the lame way. And then we say the character conditions there we go. Cannot convert from character conditions. Ah, got it. There we go. And we'll just have to do this for each of the other ones. It's not the end of the world. We can even write a helper for it if we are feeling extra lazy, but I really don't feel the need to. So this character portrait, when we start, if I now start party member 1 as nauseated, and we start the game, obviously that's going to stick around. I'm going to hide it. And there we go. It shows up anyway on him because, surprise, surprise, he is kind of nauseated. Now, the problem is everyone else is missing this. And I don't want them to be. So we need to attach this to all the other characters as well. So we have... Otherwise, bad things seem to be happening. Yes. And I'm going to remove the 1 afterwards, because that's going to mess with everything. There we go. And And just to test and ensure that this works, what we should do is when you rest, each time you rest, there should be essentially a chance that you can get out of being sick. So on a sleep tick or a rest tick. I don't know if I want a rest tick to do the trick. Do we want to do this with resting? Because resting would mean that you could rest your character out of a condition. Granted, it also means that they're kind of losing the time anyway. So maybe it would be worth it. At least for something as minor as being nauseated. If conditions contains nauseated, and of course, since C# doesn't quite understand all the time what I'm talking about when I say do an and on this flag, it just kind of goes, what? Why would I do that? Oh boy. There are times when this language can be meddlesome, for lack of better words. So if you are nauseated, you should make some kind of roll, probably, to try and get out of being sick. Right now, let's say that nauseated is, we could say it's a timer, right? We could say no matter what, given a certain amount of time, you're gonna feel better. And that's one way to handle this. That would be one thing to do. The other way to handle this would be essentially that you make rolls until you pass a certain number. Let's bundle those together, since I'm thinking about it this way. What we're gonna do, we'll have a let's see, let's figure this out. It'll be a nausea counter. I'll try and think of a better word for it, but we'll use the word counter for now. And essentially what happens is, while you're nauseated, we say, okay, the counter is just going to go up each time, and we're going to say it's based on the, it's based on a roll of your constitution. So we're going to roll dice equal to our constitution. Right? I said Constitution might not be a stat, because I'm thinking Dungeons and Dragons level stuff. No, it's endurance. You're going to roll dice equal to your endurance. Great. Now what we're going to do is say, well, if the nausea counter is greater than a certain number, let's say in this case it's, let's see, what's one of my character's stats look like? Player 2's endurance is 4. Yours is going to be 6. Okay, so like 50. 50 sounds good. And maybe this shouldn't go in rest tick entirely. This should be its own check nausea or attempt nausea, something like that. We'll call it check status conditions? For now, I'll only use nausea, but we'll add other things in as other effects come online. And 50 right now is a completely arbitrary number. But if the nausea counter is greater than 50, great. Nausea counter becomes 0, and the character is no longer nauseated. So conditions get ended with the opposite of character conditions dot nauseated. Can I do that? Yeah, I can. Sweet. And of course, just put an else of a nausea counter becomes 0, just so that if you manage to dispel the nausea normally, that you don't, the next time you get nauseated, get a free pass or free progress on feeling better initially. So as you rest, you may or may not actually get rid of it, which would be cool. And I'm going to put that before the rest tick. So if you rest in combat, that'll trigger this. If you rest outside of combat, that'll also trigger this. So there's one part, and I'm just going to run around a little bit to do that, and then start resting. And you can see that a couple rest ticks haven't done the trick yet. There we go. But as he does feel better, it gets removed. Great. Now it's time to screw with combat and other things. Because obviously each of these is going to cause a little bit of extra trouble. And I don't know why I have breakpoints everywhere. Let's just rip those out right now. Oh, delete all breakpoints is off. I'm guessing that was the last one, and I just keep happening to run across them. Spend energy. I'm kind of curious where you're getting used. Because actually, we'll just inside the spend energy. Kind of tempted to say, if you're spending energy at all, you should get a certain modifier to the amount of energy. Or, obviously, the other way to do it would be, there's the base spend energy. Spend energy 1 on navigation. Other things to do, obviously, are going to be adding nausea into other cases. So, let's see here. So one helper I would really like to have along for the ride right now. And I'm actually going to make it a public helper. Usually I make my helpers usually I like to make my helpers private, because in most cases the only thing that a helper gets used by is the local class that it's a part of. But in this case, this is actually something that we might want to check outside of the class. So we'll handle it like this. If conditions ended with condition, there we go. And for some reason, this is complaining, so let's just put more brackets around things until it stops complaining. Why is it still complaining? Conditions is the field. Condition singular. We and the two together, which you should be able to do. Invalid expression term that. But this is what gives us the Boolean. If I remove this, it stops being a Boolean. Also, that's the enum. That's fine. Just change some names here. Open, shut, open, shut, shut. That looks fine. What are you complaining about? Does one of these, like, need to be an int? That really shouldn't be the case. Eclipse Shadows, why name that nausea? It seems like a good condition. It's something that can go wrong. You eat bad food, your character gets nauseated, and suddenly they're a little less effective in combat. They're taking more time to get things done outside of combat. They might not be quite as great because they're a little distracted. It makes sense to call it nausea. The question is, why can I not and these two conditions together? They're flags. I should be able to and them together. I feel like I've done it in other places, especially if you look at the way I handle this guard spent. I use the or equals operator to handle that, so this should be fine. I wonder if... no, that definitely isn't right. Oh, it's complaining somewhere else. That's my problem. It's not complaining about my code that I wrote up there. Okay. Also, since this is, now that I think about it, a something that can happen to pretty much any character, because all characters can have conditions, I'm going to move this to the character section. This seems like a good helper function to have for characters in general. So I'm just going to move that there. And let's get back to the code that it thinks is broken. So we're going to check the condition of nausea. And if they're nauseated, then we're going to say, well, it's going to cost you a little more to walk around. And then, so, okay, this now is one more. So essentially what I kind of want to do for nausea is I want to make it not terribly threatening, but I want to make it a complete pain in the ass to have. Because it's not like you get nauseated, you go to the doctor or anything. So, inside combat actions, this is where things get exciting. Okay, for each character and targets, for each process action. Okay. So this process is a single combat action. I actually need to find where I process all of combat altogether, which I'm pretty sure is in the combat window. Yeah, here we are. Process combat. I also kind of think that check nausea should maybe be something that lives on the character and not in the player character, because that's also something that all characters can do. All characters should be able to get nauseated. All players or all characters should also be able to feel better. Oh, and I did, didn't I? It looks like I did put it in the right spot, so that's cool. So if participant check condition, hey, are you nauseated? If so, there is, let's say it's a 1 in, I don't know. I want to say a 1 in 2 or a 1 in 3 chance. Otherwise, what's the point of putting the status effect on the character if it's not going to go off? For now, let's just call it a 25% action. So, and if we actually wanted to make this more helpful, what we could do is, I don't really want to put it in character. That's the only thing. I'm kind of tempted to say it would be combat information, because this is something that only ever happens in combat. Somebody trying to do something and losing their turn. So I'll just put it here. We'll call it nausea sick chance. And we're just going to say this should be in the range of 0 to 1, by the way. Where obviously 1 is it happens all the time, 0 is, well, it doesn't happen often. There we go. So if we find out that they are nauseated, and I guess I should put the and here. Well, no. First things first. If random value, which value is always 0 and 1, if the random value is less than the sick chance, and I say less than, I could be mean and say less than or equal to, but that doesn't really change enough for me to care. So if we get sick, we should do the things that remove their action. So whoever it is, we're going to do a few things. We're going to say description text.text. Character dot, nope, not character, participant dot character name is sick. And that's pretty much all I think I want to do, honestly. Okay, maybe I don't want to quite continue, though. That's the only thing I don't think I want to do. I need some way to skip action. I'm just noticing how much code is here. I'm trying to think of a better way to do this, but for now, I think this might be the best way to handle this. Actually, that's not so bad either. If skip action is false, do this. Now, the one thing to keep in mind, I don't think this action dictionary that I should be removing them one at a time, kind of picking them out as they happen. It doesn't really hurt to leave the actions in, as far as I can recall, until the end. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to skip the action. I'm not going to do the removal. I'm just going to say, oh, by the way, we need to clear that at the very end. So here we are doing all of our removal stuff. I'm just going to grab the action dictionary and just tell it, look, clear it. Don't care who is doing what. Combat, this turn of combat is over. Therefore, I don't really care. Also, one of the things that Linus Torvald said that kind of resonates with me personally is that if you have more than 3 indent layers, you're doing something wrong. Now, I don't think that's always the case, obviously. Having a hard and fast rule like at the 3rd indent layer, you're in trouble, is always going to be true. But at the same time, I also want to make sure that my indent layers don't go too crazy still. I want to make sure that it's not complete garbage. So I'm just kind of shifting some of my statements around a little bit just to make sure that that my combat makes sense. And also to ensure that my if statements aren't wildly out of control. Which that looks a lot better already, the way it's been cleaned up. And then we say participant.check So this will give him a chance to feel better at the end of the whole thing. Also, let's see here. Spend energy equal to... I kind of want to make this like punishing when this happens. So a character getting sick should be a big thing. For now, I'm just going to hard code something painful in. Which would be hilarious if somebody pukes themselves unconscious. It'd be terrible to be a player whose character just did that to themselves. So if I get into this fight... Oh, I just realized though, I think my combat window, if I look at the prefab for the combat window, we'll see that the nausea sick chance is at 0. We need to set that to 30% chance. I think is a good starting point, and I can tune it from there. If I find out I like it more down at 25, I actually kind of like it down at 25. So 25% chance if somebody is sick that they'll just like lose their guts. Eclipse Shadows, this is not C, this is C sharp. It is essentially... I just realized I could kill the fairy very quickly. Let's hope nobody does. As the fairy then begins to... Okay, so the warrior is fine this turn. Let's see here. You... Oh no, he got punched. Oh, he's sick. And that was that. Okay, I'm not a huge fan of how quickly that goes by, but I do like the fact that it works. Obviously, I'm kind of always happy whenever my code does what I expect it to. God, I love seeing the fact that they dodged as part of the action when I do stuff like this. Knowing that it makes a difference was really cool. Oh, there he goes again, getting sick. Makes me wonder if he's going to be able to get out of this while combat's still happening. If I start resting, maybe that'll help. Let's have the cleric actually cast a heal on him. Now, heal wounds only heals hit points, right? It doesn't remove status effects. So it's not like it's going to make him any better. Hey, he rests, he regains some health. Since he's the only one I'm having do any kind of attacking, I just kind of want to see if 25% is too much or is not enough. It honestly doesn't seem to be affecting him that poorly. He also just might be rolling well. Okay, well, that kind of gives me the information I was hunting for. Let's see. I'm kind of hoping he actually improves or gets better, because that's the one thing that hasn't happened yet as far as I know. If I keep looking at this, yeah, he's still marked as nauseated, so I don't really want to go so far as to... Wow, she's wailing on this poor warrior. Oh, hey, and there he goes. He rests, he feels better. I like it. It works. Hey, Sadistic. What's up? I'm making a game. Pretty much all that's up, too. Defense, cleric, heal, cast, spell, mage, blow her up. Plop. Got her with a fireball. And hey, oh, you guys can't hear it. Gosh darn it, guys. I'm sorry. I put the fanfare in there, and then I realized that you guys don't get to hear the fanfare or any of the walking around noises, which that I would call a good thing. Yep, the usual grind, at least for me. Alright guys, I've been online for an hour. I do have to get going to work. Hello, Air Snarks. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully we made a good bit of progress, and it's definitely nice to, now that I understand how this one piece ties in, it'll be easy for me to tie other conditions in. All I have to do is find the right icons, and I don't want to do that on stream. So I'm probably going to sit around at work while I wait for servers to start up and poke through all the game icons again and see if I can't figure out which ones I do and don't like. Aside from that, thank you very, very much for joining me, guys. If you haven't done it yet, please hit the follow button, that little green heart in the corner. It'll let you know when I come online. And if you want to make sure you don't miss any streams at all, follow me on Twitter. That's where I tend to announce my weird streams that I'm doing. I haven't done any of those lately because I've been a bit busy. Work, as I said, is a little crazy. And I do feel for Lemony, who's doing his server work right now. I'll be going back to that same grind myself when I get to work. Not the worst thing in the world, but definitely they can be a little cumbersome at times. So, thanks again, guys. It's been great. Oh, it's only green if you already follow me. Well, if it's green, don't hit it again. Don't do it. Don't. If it's not green, hit it until it is. That'll be better. That's a better way to put it. And I can actually, my phone just went off, so thank you to whoever followed. I don't actually have any overlays running yet. I need to get that going on this stream so that I can see when folks are doing that. But thank you again, guys. It's been great, and I will hopefully see you all tomorrow, same time and place. I do this every morning, at least Tuesday through Friday. Tend to do it on Monday, too. So, hopefully I'll see you guys tomorrow. In the meantime, have a great day. Best of luck with your coding and game making. Take care.